There are so many champions that the majority of the player base are just flat out playing wrong. It's time to put an end to this. So in today's video, we're going to be covering 10 champions that almost everyone's playing wrong and showing you the more optimal way of playing them. But before we get into it, be sure to check out Skillcapped if you want to truly get better at League of Legends. We're the only service that offers a money-back guarantee if you don't climb at least 5 divisions while actively using our service. We do this because our service really does work, and if it doesn't work for you, you shouldn't pay. Learn more at the end of this video or click the link in the description below. The first champion on the list is actually a very popular top lane pick, being Renekton. You'd think that with a champion being very popular, everyone would be using the champion optimally, but that's really not the case. Skill order on Renekton is where most players are messing up, as over 80% of Renekton players are maxing E out second when they should be maxing W instead. To back up the legitimacy to this claim, the rank 1 Renekton player in the world right now, who goes by the summoner name 3-in-1, is running this skill order. It looks like he streams on Twitch as well, so you can check him out there. In some of his very recent games, he's even going for 3 points into Q and then maxing W, which is a very interesting adaptation. Whether you max Q first or go for just 3 points, the key takeaway here is that you're reaching W max way sooner. One of the big upsides to maxing W out second instead of E is that the spell cooldown literally drops in half. With only 1 point in Renekton W, the cooldown of the spell is 16 seconds, but it drops to 8 at max rank. E cooldown in comparison only drops from 16 to 12 seconds once maxed out, so not as much value there. The 1v1 dueling strength of Renekton just goes through the roof with a W max compared to E, as having more access to a point-and-click stun is so powerful. Now, if you aren't convinced already, stats help to back everything up even further. Renekton players going for W max second are winning about 1% more than players going E max second. It will actually be really interesting to see if this skill order catches on more this patch if Spear of Shojin becomes more of a core pickup on Renekton. Just imagine how short W cooldown will be while maxing it out second and getting all the basic ability haste from Shojin. The outplay potential in the 1v1 would be pretty much non-existent for the enemy fighting you. Another very popular top lane champion, especially for the lower ranks, that the majority are playing wrong is Garen. In Plat and below, where Garen thrives the most, over 60% of players are still running Conqueror. In recent patches, FaZe Rush has been heavily outperforming Conqueror, but is yet to really catch on. Tyler1 just recently had the great pleasure of playing into a FaZe Rush Garen, so let's hear his thoughts.
So cringe. Garen's so broken, it's so nasty.
As we all know, Garen is a champion who lacks gap closer and can therefore be kited quite easily. By running FaZe Rush, this weakness is heavily alleviated, as your sticking power and ability to escape dicey situations is much better. FaZe Rush also makes Garen's quick trade pattern very difficult for the enemy to match. When you have both FaZe Rush and your W available, you can trade with the enemy, take very little damage in return, and once you're done using Q and E, use that movement speed from FaZe Rush to dip away before the enemy can trade back. Here's a look at the complete rune page you should be running. Nimbus Cloak, Celerity, and Gathering Storm round out primary runes, while Conditioning and Overgrowth are great for secondaries. At the time I'm making this video, only 4% of Kayn players are abusing this new build that's become way stronger in 13.17. With how broken Duskblade had been in recent patches, Blue Kayn had overshadowed Red Kayn, but with Dusk nerfed here in 13.17 and Gore Drinker buffed, it's brought forth a really strong Bruiser build. Not only was Gore Drinker buffed, but so was Spear of Shojin, and when you combine these two items together, you have a very potent core build right now. The majority of Red Kayn players are building Death's Dance or Spirit Visage as their third pickup, but you should really be trying Spear of Shojin. The passive from Spear works absolutely amazing with Kayn because it puts his Q on such a short cooldown. The consistent dueling power becomes completely nuts and you're extremely difficult to take down. For the complete core build, it's a Gore Drinker Rush into Black Cleaver second and Spear of Shojin third. It's actually pretty incredible how much more Rammus players succeed when they don't go Flash. By far, Flash is the most common summoner spell on Rammus, but it comes nowhere close to winning as much as Ghost. In Gold Elo, only 20% of Rammus players run Ghost, but it's winning a whole 2% more than Flash. So, what makes Ghost so powerful on Rammus, and why is it being slept on? Rammus is a jungler who has incredible gank power early game with his Q. When you couple this with the movement speed from Ghost, his ganks become nearly unavoidable. Enemy laner can even be playing slightly on their side of the lane, but with how much movement speed Rammus can zoom in with, even if the enemy has a ward, it doesn't even matter. Rammus can just zip past the ward, get right up on the enemy, and at the very least, force them to flash. With the enemy's flash down, you now have a window to where your Ghost cooldown will be up before before the enemy's flash. This pretty much guarantees a kill if you repeat gank that lane when you have Ghost back up. All in all, your gank power is just way more consistent when running Ghost throughout the early game due to the spell having a much shorter cooldown than Flash. Mid lane Brand has been given a nice bump in power due to his recent AP ratio buffs, but he'd be performing even better if players were building him correctly. Something one of our challenger mid lane creators, Shory, has been running on his Brand mid is a Rylai's Rush instead of Liandry's. If a challenger mid laner's word is not enough, just take a look at statistics. We can see that Rylai's is actually outperforming Liandry's. Brand mid players rushing Rylai's are winning about 52% of the time, while Liandry's players are sitting at 49%. A big reason why Brand mid's overall win rate is not higher though is due to the fact that only 14% of players are actually taking advantage of this Rylai's Rush. If you guys want to see this build in action, Shory actually just completed a full game commentary for Brand mid that can be found on our website. Now, the rune page is actually important to mention as well. The majority of Brand mid players run Dark Harvest, but Electrocute is far superior. Brand's passive burn counts as an ability, so all you have to do is land 2 spells to proc Electrocute. This makes an E into W combo super lethal throughout the laning phase, and you don't even have to land your Q stun to deal considerable damage. With this optimal build and rune page, Brand mid is definitely one of the more sleeper champs for 13.17. It's pretty hysterical how simply swapping builds turns Corki from an absolute garbage champion to a pretty strong pick. The most popular Corki build in solo queue consists of running a Static Shiv Rush into Manamune and Ludens. The build is performing absolutely terrible though, as you're very reliant on hitting R to be effective, and just don't have great consistent DPS power at all. A build that has far superior DPS and can also deal a considerable amount of poke damage consists of a Trinity Rush into Manamune 2nd and Ravenous Hydra 3rd. This Trinity build completely blows the poke build out of the water stat-wise, winning 58% of the time as opposed to the static build winning only 52% of the time. Trinity Force just provides way more dueling power than Static Shiv does, as the Spellblade proc works so well with Corki's kit. The only upside to going Static Shiv is that you have slightly better wave clear, but that's really not an issue for Corki because he has no problems chewing through waves with his Q, E, and R. Definitely look to give this Trinity build a go on Corki if you're looking for a new mid laner to pick up, because the mid game spike is incredible and he's really not as bad as his overall win rate may suggest. One ADC that is played so much differently by pro players than the majority of the player base is Nilah. Most solo queue Nilah players just autopilot run Flash with Ghost as their summoner spells and don't bother thinking beyond that. This may seem a little troll at first, so you've got to hear us out, but pros like Deft and Viper very regularly run Ghost with Cleanse. This summoner combination is much more popular over on the Korean server, being picked in 9% of games, but over in NA, only 3% of Nilah players run Ghost with Cleanse. Cleanse in general is a very valuable summoner to have on Nilah due to the fact you've got to play the champion in situations that are going to leave you more vulnerable in order to get the most out of her. Looking for catch plays with R become much more reliable when you can cleanse a CC spell that is inevitably going to come your way. Of course, if you're going against a comp that has very little CC, you can bypass running Cleanse and just take Flash, but especially against heavy CC supports like Amumu, Leona, Rakan, or Thresh, the Cleanse is super important. Now, you might be wondering, well, okay, why not just go Flash with Cleanse then? Why am I taking Ghost? Ghost is going to be more superior to Flash when you are playing in a drawn-out fight. The bonus movement speed is really great on a lower range ADC like Nilah to help her space better and stick onto targets. When taking a look at skill order on Varus, there's a very interesting trend going on over the past few patches now. Instead of a typical Q max, what's actually been winning the most for multiple patches in a row now is an E max first. It's about a 2% difference as well, which is pretty significant. One of the main draws to prioritizing the E max first is that it's a much easier spell to land than Q. Consistent damage can actually be much higher by going for E max, and it makes Varus a little easier to play. The cooldown of E also drops more significantly when maxed out compared to Q. Q drops from a 16-second cooldown to 12 seconds, while E starts at 18 and drops all the way down to 10. Games where an E max would be more attractive than a Q max would be when you're playing into a shorter ranged comp. Into a longer ranged comp, playing for Q max would make more sense because it will be harder to land E regularly, but into more melee heavy comps, the shorter cooldown on E can be really useful for not only more reliable damage, but to help you kite better due to the spell providing a slow. Something very interesting about Morgana support right now is how much more success she sees when running Aerie. It's not like it's just a one patch fluke either, as over the past couple of patches, Aerie has always had the better win rate than Comet or Glacial, but only 4% of players are running the rune. A big reason why Aerie works so well on Morg is that it gives her very reliable poke power in lane. Whenever your W is off cooldown, you can spam it out on the enemy ADC, and even if they don't stand in the spell for multiple ticks, you'll always get the Aerie proc off combined with Scorch for poke that will add up over the course of the lane. Although Comet is going to deal more damage when it procs, the cooldown is 20 seconds early on, which means you're not going to have it up every time your W is available. Comet is also not guaranteed to land either, as champions can just walk right out of it. It's really the consistent reliability of Aerie that makes it so great on Morgana. For a look at the complete rune page, it's Aerie with Mana Flow, Transcendence, and Scorch, followed by Perfect Timing and Biscuits for secondaries. For the longest time, high elo Thresh players have prioritized a W max second, but for some reason, lower elo Thresh players just insist on maxing E second instead. Not only do high elo Thresh players max W second more often, but it even has a significantly higher win rate than E. Thresh players maxing out E second only win 49% of the time, while players maxing W out second are winning 52% of the time. With this kind of spread, you'd think without question that W max second would be more popular, but throughout all ranks, it's only played in 18% of games, while E max second is played in over 70%. What it really comes down to is the fact that having W on a shorter cooldown is often more valuable than having E on a shorter cooldown for the mid-game onwards. Thresh W is such a game-changing spell, arguably one of the most broken basic abilities in the game, so having it up as often as possible is very powerful. A bit more damage and a shorter cooldown on E is just not going to be more influential throughout a large sample of games. If your argument for maxing E second is that it deals more damage, it's not really that relevant, especially at the point in the game to where you would have E maxed out. The game is going to be well over 25 minutes, and any hook that you land should be a kill regardless of how much damage your E deals. Vice versa, having W on a shorter cooldown can literally make or break whether your teammates live or die in a fight. Alright guys, before we wrap this up, let's tell you a little more about Skill-Capped. So, we offer a 5-division rank up guarantee, and think that's a pretty crazy thing to offer. It's like a gym membership guaranteeing you'll get ripped. Your local gym would go bust if they offered that, right? Not us. We've offered this for years because our service really does work. It works so well, in fact, that we're able to produce by far the largest catalog of premium league guides on the internet. We add over 20 videos a week, with over 1,600 guides curated into over 100 courses no one can compare. We've also sent Challenger players into ELO Hell 714 times and counting, where they commentate how to carry live. They also respond to all questions asked. Sign up today for as little as $6.99 a month if you are serious about improving. So that's going to wrap everything up for this one, guys. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.